We have had some amazing rabbis on this podcast. Rabbi Yaakov Shapiro, the good Shapiro, and of course, Rabbi Brant Rosen in particular are the ones who come to mind, who really understand the size and the scope of what's going on here. The fact that there is no separation between Judaism and Zionism, which is exactly the reason why we're in this predicament right now in many ways. And then you have people like Rabbi Yosef Mizrahi, who are emblematic of all that is wrong with what the Zionist cause has become and how it has completely mangled Judaism to the point in which people are starting to feel that maybe we just need to get rid of the Jews. That's how it gets to this point, and it gets there because of people like this.
Gets angry, the Jews in control, they control the money. So who will control the money? You compare. The Goyim gets angry, the Jews in control, the Jews in control, they control the money. So who will control the money? You compare yourself to the chosen people. You don't see their blessing by God. It's good for you that they run the country and they run the.
They really believe this. I'll play it again, hopefully at a smaller pixel it'll play better. Let's see.
And the Goyim gets angry, the Jews in control, the Jews in control, they control the money. So who will control the money? You compare yourself to the chosen people. You don't see their blessing by God. It's good for you that they run the country and they run the world and they run an economy. The whole world came to destroy the.
No. There is nothing good about a so-called chosen people claiming that it is best for them to control the money, control the world, and that we should be grateful that the chosen ones have not done away with us altogether. Again, this is psychopathic ideology. And this rabbi, who has been making the rounds for quite some time, they are one of several that talk like this, that think like this. And normally, as I would say, I wouldn't care. It's really not that important to me. But the reason this has become a primary talking point for many of us is simply this. They have a lot of control. They have a lot of influence, a lot of money, a lot of power. It's that simple. So when they talk like this, they're talking like this from a position of power, authority, and influence. And this is real. They really feel like this. I wish people would stop even suggesting that they're really not this crazy. Oh, they are. They really are. They're not hiding it. And the more they spiral out of control, the more they will continue to act like this. So it's imperative that we keep exposing them.
The Jews, all the empire, all of them are gone, and the Jews remain always in power. It's unheard of. According to the laws of nature, the Jews should have died already in the first year after they got the Torah, when Amalek already came. They had no army, no weapon. They're in the middle of the desert with no children, and all of a sudden they are being attacked one day after the other. Back then already it was a huge miracle to survive. 3,300 years of bombs and Holocaust and all kinds of wars and empire coming to Jerusalem to burn us alive. All those empires disappeared, and we are above everybody, always in power, always we are the head of the world. Imagine the world without us. The world.
Oh, I do. I do. I think a lot of people do. Sunshine, lollipops, and rainbows everywhere. They're colorful, and that's what makes me so happy. Sorry, I had to do a little jig. I do think it is something that a lot of people have been thinking about. And he says it so flippantly, as if to suggest that the world would end without them around. No, I'm afraid the world would rejoice in many ways. They said it, not me.
Would be 1,000 years more primitive. All the inventions in the world almost all come from Jews, mainly Israelis.
Okay, so therein lies the rub. All the inventions come from Jews, particularly Israelis. Where the hell did that come from? Yes, Jews have been responsible for a number of important inventions. But you know, the biggest anti-Zionist of them all, Einstein, theory of relativity, the atom bomb. This guy hated Israel. He hated everything that it represented. But they lie like they breathe. They refer to all Jews as Zionists, even though the overwhelming majority of the most successful Jews who ever lived were not for Israel. Many of them were working class individuals who had great ideas and they saw them through. In death, they like to rewrite their history and presume that these people were fully on board with everything that they've ever done. There is the problem. They steal because we've allowed them to steal. They rewrite history because we've allowed them to rewrite history. And the history since 1948 has been written in such a way that any of the great achievements of Jews in the 20th and the 19th centuries, they're being erased. And it's because of people like him. And that has to be said. And whether or not anybody wants to admit this or not, when you do have control of the banking system, which goes all the way to the top with the Rothschilds, he who has the gold makes the rules. And that's effectively the way this has worked. And that's why you're not going to see too much pushback on somebody like this man. But we not only push back, we push back on it the right way. Don't just throw the baby out with the bathwater. But that's what they're hoping for, because as we've said, one of the biggest reasons why Zionism has thrived to the extent that it has is because they have refused to allow there to be any airspace between Judaism and Zionism, even at the detriment of the violence and the hatred towards Jews, which is very real now. You know, they're out there talking about, oh my God, Jews don't feel safe. You know what? You shouldn't. And it's incumbent upon the Jewish community to speak up against these fucking lunatics. But they don't do it. That's their sin. Because there is a code of silence within their culture. They know that they're wrong, but not enough of them speak up. We love the people within the community led by the likes of Medea Benjamin and Code Pink. The people at Jewish Voice for Peace. People like Jen. People like Katie Halper. People like Lee Camp. People like Max Blumenthal. Aaron Mate. They're out there. And they're doing everything they can. But sons of bitches like this, they suck all the air out of the room. And that's all you hear. You hear him. You hear him in their psychopathic genocidal ideology. And let me assure you, they're not the only one in the world that thinks like this. They have a case system in India. People have supremacist ideologies in all different forms, including what we have here in this country. Keaton and Russell, great reference. And we need to be crystal clear about this. Nuance doesn't get you clicks, but it does get you respect. And that's all we care about.
Medicine, doctors, surgeons, biggest judges in America, all kinds of designers, architects. artists, musicians, big rabbis, philosophers, try to imagine the world without the Jews.
Well, again, we're trying to imagine that, but I also want to say there is a significant difference between the Christian Zionists and the Jewish Zionists, and here's what it is. If you look at the overwhelming majority of the populations where the Christian Zionists come from, the Deep South, the Heartland, places in the country where education is not a priority. Remember, in Jewish communities, education is very important, like the most important. New York, Miami, Chicago, LA, San Francisco, Denver, Philadelphia, Boston. Education is everything. In the Christian Zionist-dominated parts of the United States, the Heartland and the South, education is not the most important thing. In fact, the most important thing is the church. And in the evangelical church, you are taught from a very young age that this is all that matters. We have seen the Zionist pastors that have said that the Jews are the chosen people and you are to bow down to them. They say that to their congregations. And as we know, the biggest Christian Zionist state in the country is Texas. It has 3 of the biggest grifting pastors this country has ever seen: John Hager, Joel Osteen, and Crazy Eyes. That's how Copeland should always be referred. Copeland's got the eyes. The demon seed is in the eyes. They always have been. But as I've said, the thing you have to remember about these particular communities, the Christian Zionist communities, the big difference between them and the Jewish Zionist communities is education. And when you're brought up to believe that everything revolves around the church, and if the church in question, in this case, evangelism, tells you that Israel is the end-all be-all and you don't bow down to them, you'll burn in hell, let me assure you, it scares the ever-loving bejesus out of people, and it indoctrinates them from a very young age. Christian Zionism is much more based on religion than Jewish Zionism is. Jewish Zionism is much more based on economics. Christian Zionism is definitely about the true believers. And that's the danger. But it's also why, and we've said this before, the Jewish Zionists provide the money and the Christian Zionists provide the flock. And that's how they've been able to maintain this for as long as they have. That's why when the rabbi talks the way he does, the pastors then reiterate that message to their flock and tell them, yeah, he's right. Don't question him. He knows what he's talking about. And so, of course, that's how we get to this point.
The Jews are 0.25% from the population. And the Goyim get angry. Jews in control, the Jews in control, they control the money. So who will control the money? You? You compare yourself to the church people, you don't see their blessing by God? It's good for you that they run the country and they run the world and they run economy. I want to remind you, the United States was on a point of bankruptcy in 2008. Everything here was about to destroy. And who saved this country? Ben Shalom Bernanke. He was the chairman of the Fed.
I don't know if you're calling me a dummy, Piano Man, but I know exactly what you're referring to. Yes, there is a portion of the evangelical Christian Zionist brigade that only want the Jews to be in Israel so that the rapture can happen. And again, that's not all of evangelism, but it's certainly a decent portion of it. There's no two ways about that. And yes, the population is much bigger. But that is what they want. And again, it's all a means to an end. It isn't a question of whether what they're saying is something that anybody actually agrees with or believes in, because it isn't. It's just bullshit. Everything is a means to an end.
The Federal Reserve. He was a religious Jew, Shomer Shabbat, even though in public he didn't show his yarmulke, but he walked to synagogue on Shabbat, and he made some brilliant moves with the interest, bringing it down, bailing out banks, forcing the banks to buy the small banks before the country will become a complete anarchy and chaos. People will kill each other here on the street. United States will become worse than Russia after USSR collapsed. And he saved this country, but they have zero gratitude. A religious Jew with his brilliance, this economist, Bernanke, Google it. You don't have to believe me. See the moves he made. You teach it in schools. The country was on the point of all the banks will go bankrupt. You don't know what happened. I was in Wachovia Bank. It was a powerful bank. They went bankrupt. He forced Wells Fargo to buy them. He forced Chase to buy many banks. If not, do you know how much money people would lose? And the FDIC was up to, I think, 50,000 per account. That's it. People had millions in their account, life-saving. All of it will be wiped out. Big mortgage companies collapsed. This country, 2008, was in a disaster. And who saved the country? One brilliant religious Jew. Anybody appreciate it? No, nobody even speaks about it.
Nobody's going to speak about it because everything is all about dollars and cents. But let me say this. The banking system manipulation, the printing of the money, is something that the rich and powerful do to convince the public that what they're holding is actually of any value. But no, the real value is intangible assets, precious metals, real estate. That's where real value is. Controlling the banks is controlling the illusion of money. As long as people believe that a dollar is a dollar and that that's worth something, they'll fight for it tooth and nail to convince themselves that it will always be that way until it isn't. That's what's coming next. BRICS will inevitably take the reins. Now, it's not going to happen tomorrow, but it's in the process. And that's why when we talk about these financials, and yes, illusions are real, Krista. Illusions are real. If you are convinced that a $100 bill is worth $100 without actually asking, but how? It's just paper. Why is it worth 100? Because another person is willing to believe the same thing. Yes, it's worth $100. I'll take it. But if things start to fall apart, how are you going to be able to prove it? You won't. It's like saying, how do I know that gold is worth more than what somebody's willing to give me? Because it's the most sought after element in the world. How do I know that silver is worth what it's worth? Because again, silver is not only a precious metal, it's a tangible asset. Do you know that silver can be used to alkaline water? Yeah. That's just one of many valuable components to silver, including its current capabilities. Can't build solar panels without silver. It's a prerequisite. Real silver was how you determined the value of actual coinage. Gold is for the rich, and silver was for the working class. Gold has always existed for the rich, but silver was taken away from the working class right after JFK was assassinated. And it's been that way ever since. They finally realized that the people can't have a population that isn't under our thumb. So they figured out how to do that. The rest is history. So understand that element of money, and we'll all be better for it. Because it's only going to go up, because the dollar is only going to continue to go down. We cannot print our way into prosperity, and we're not going to. The empire is collapsing, And it's because of people like this dumbass rabbi that it is happening. So we have to prepare accordingly. That's our responsibility. And on this channel, more so, more than ever, it is imperative that we share this knowledge because it is real. And just in case you ever end up in a vampire situation or a werewolf situation, well, actually, no, I don't think silver does anything to vampires, but I think it does to werewolves. I think Hot Dog's right about that one. But all kidding aside, knowledge is power, and understand that this rabbi, he's making a really, really strong case about what the world would look like if the Zios no longer existed. Don't tempt me with a good time.